Well, I would start by saying that it's a significant poverty of the language that we use the same word to describe how a child feels when it rains on the day of his baseball game and how someone feels who decides to commit suicide. That we use this one word, which has both a colloquial and a clinical application, and it would be helpful if we had separate vocabulary. Having said that, I think depression lies on a continuum with ordinary sadness and pain and withdrawal, that many of the things that are characteristic of the clinical condition of major depression are initially similar to things that are typical of someone who's just having a bad day or a rough time. I always say that the opposite of depression is not happiness but vitality. And when someone is severely depressed, what they lose is the vitality. It's the will to live. It's the energy to do things. It's the ability to engage themselves with the business of life. It's not just that they feel really, really sad the way that someone does who's experienced a loss and is going through grief. I also think there's a complicated relationship between illness and personality, and that there are some people who have experiences of very extreme depression who in some way are able to keep up a better facade than other people are. But the fact that someone is functioning during a depression doesn't mean that depression isn't really acute. When you ask about the distinction between depression and ordinary sadness or ordinary grief, I sometimes think that it's, you talk about a fence that's rusting, and you would use the same word rust if the fence had a couple of little orange spots on it. And you would also use that word if it had crumbled into nothing but powder. And it's the same phenomenon, and it's happened to the same fence, but they're two very different situations. And one of them you can probably fix with a lick of paint, and in the other, there's nothing there to fix. And I often feel when I talk to people who are experiencing major depression that they are, in fact, moving toward being that completely collapsed fence, which is not to say that major depression is not in many instances treatable and that many people don't manage to resolve it. But it's something that's it's a gradual blurring where it goes from being a normal set of moods and circumstances to being something completely intolerable, unlivable, unmanageable, devastating, and paralyzing.